Hey everyone, and welcome. If you're aiming for a career in tech, automation, DevOps, the cloud, you are in exactly the right place. Over the next few minutes, we're going to build the absolute foundation of your Python toolkit. And we're starting with the one concept that powers literally everything else. So let me start with a question for you. What is the one thing, the secret ingredient that every single great script has in common? I'm talking everything from a simple automation tool to a super complex AI model. What's their shared secret? Well, believe it or not, the answer is incredibly simple, but it is the key that unlocks everything else. It all starts with the ability to store and label a piece of information. Okay, let's dive right in with our very first core concept, variables. And to really get this, I want you to just picture a simple, empty box with a label on it. So what is a variable? At its heart, it's just a name we use to refer to a value that's being stored in the computer's memory. And honestly, that labeled box analogy is perfect. You get a box, you slap a label on it, and then you put something inside. That's it. You've just made a variable. Let's break this down. When you see a line of code like age equals 25, you're actually telling Python three distinct things. First, age. That's the label you're putting on your box. Next, that equals sign. Think of that as the action of putting something into the box. And finally, 25. Well, that's the actual thing you're storing inside. See? Label, action, item. Super simple. Now, hold on. You can't just label your box whatever you want. Python is a little picky and has some rules. Your labels can't start with a number, they can't have weird characters like hyphens, and you absolutely cannot use special words that Python reserves for itself, like the word class. Just stick to letters, numbers, and underscores, and you'll be good to go. And here is a huge pro tip. If you want to write code that looks professional, code that'll get you hired, use snake case. That just means separating words with an underscore, like first underscore name. It makes your code way easier for humans to read, and trust me, it's a little detail that interviewers definitely notice. All right, so we've got our labeled boxes. The next obvious question is, what kind of stuff can we actually put inside them? And that brings us right to our next section, Python's core data types. I want you to think of these as the four basic materials you get to build with. You've got integers, which are just whole numbers. You've got floats for any number with a decimal point. You've got strings, which is just a fancy word for text. And you've got booleans, which are your simple true or false values. Pretty much everything you build in Python is made from a combination of these four. Now, here's something that makes Python so fantastic, especially for beginners. You don't actually have to tell it what kind of data you're storing. If you write age equals 25, Python is smart enough to know, hey, that's a whole number, it's an integer. If you write name equals John, it knows it's text, a string. It just automatically figures it out for you, which is awesome. Let's zoom in on strings for a sec, because they have this really neat trick called indexing. It lets you pull out individual letters from a piece of text. But, and this is super important, you have to remember this, Python starts counting from 0, not 1. So, in the word Python, the very first letter, P, is at index 0. This trips up everyone at first, so burn it into your brain now. Okay, just a quick but really critical heads up. When you're using those true or false values, the booleans, they absolutely have to be capitalized. True with a capital T, false with a capital F. If you type it in all lowercase, your code will throw an error every single time. So remember how Python just figures out the data type for you? Well, that leads to this really powerful feature called dynamic typing. All it means is that a variable's type isn't set in stone. It can change. Your X box can hold the number 10 one second, and then you can decide to put the text hello in it the next. This makes Python really flexible and fast to write, but it's also something to be careful with in huge projects. It's a trade-off, really, convenience versus strictness. All right, we've got our labeled boxes and we know exactly what we can put inside them. Now for the fun part, let's actually make our code do something useful. In the real world, you are constantly going to need to convert data from one type to another. It happens all the time. Maybe you get a user's age as text, but you need it to be a number to do some math. Python makes this super easy with built-in functions like str to make something a string and int to make it an integer. This is a skill you will use daily for sure. But, and this is a big but, you have to be logical. You can't just convert anything to anything else. If you try to tell Python, hey, turn the word hello into a number, well, your program is going to crash. hard. It's a logical impossibility, and Python will throw an error that stops your script dead in its tracks. Of course, once you have numbers, you're going to want to do some math. Python has all the standard operators you'd expect. Plus for addition and a slash for division, they work just like your calculator. But pay close attention to the last two here. The double slash is called floor division. It's really useful. It divides, then just chops off the decimal part. And the double asterisk isn't for multiplication. That's for exponents, for raising a number to a power. A tiny difference in the symbol makes for a huge difference in the result. Okay, this right here is probably the #1 most common error every beginner makes. You try to add a number directly to a piece of text, and boom, type error. Your program crashes because you can't just mash up different data types like that. The fix, though, is so elegant and powerful. It's called an F string. You just pop an F right before the quote, and then you can put your variables directly inside the text using these curly braces. It's clean, it's easy to read, and it's what pros use. Okay, let's bring all of this home. We've gone through the core concepts, and now we're going to see how they snap together in a way that makes you genuinely job ready. Just look at this. This might look simple, but it's a totally realistic little script you might write in an IT job. You can see it all right there. A string for the IP address, an integer for the port number, a boolean to check if the server is active, and a float for the CPU usage. And then it all comes together in that beautiful, clean print statement using an F string. You now understand every single piece of this. And I want you to make no mistake about this. Every single automation script, every DevOps toolchain, every piece of code that runs the cloud, 100% of them are built on these exact concepts we just covered. This isn't just theory for learning. This is the practical working foundation of modern tech. So just take a second and look at what you've just learned. You can now declare variables using professional naming conventions. You get the 4 core data types. You know how to convert between them and how to use F strings to display them. You can do basic math, and you know how to spot and debug common type errors. You now have the toolkit. You are now holding the fundamental building blocks of Python. This is it. This is where it all begins. So the only real question left is, with this foundation now set, what are you going to build first?